Good morning, everyone. Those that are able, if you would stand with me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Morning, Mr. Chair.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the county board meeting. It is 9 o'clock. And we're going to get things started off with any additions or deletions. None from Tabitha.
Make a motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Have a motion, is there a second? Second. Had a motion and a second discussion. Hearing none, those in favor? Those opposed? That motion passes. Our next item of business is employee recognition.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd ask Shannon and Nick to come on up, please. And I'll turn it over to Shannon.
Excellent. Morning, Shannon.
Scholl, he started weeks ago, and he's going to be mainly responsible for receiving county funds and tax collections. He has his finance degree from St. Cloud States, and he likes to volunteer at his church and also ref basketball games at Pierce Sporting. So very excited to have him. I think he's going to be a great addition to Morrison County.
Excellent. Welcome aboard, Nicholas. Good to know a money guy. Our numbers guy at the very least. I appreciate that. So welcome aboard.
Yeah, I'm just happy we got referees out there.
There we go.
We need a lot of them too.
Absolutely. Welcome aboard. Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
I used to have hair like that.
Look at that. It's a revolving circle. I love it. Very good. Thank you all. All right, our next item of business is going to be the approval of our consent agenda. I'll look to the board if there's anything that anyone wants to have pulled for further discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
We've got a motion on the table, got a second. Gentlemen, this is a roll call vote. Commissioner Blaine,
Aye.
Wincher,
All right.
Lemire,
Aye.
Casper,
Aye.
and myself, Commissioner Jelinski, is an aye vote. That motion passes. We're going to move on to item number 6 on our agenda, Suicide Prevention Awareness Month proclamation. Good morning, everyone. I would ask that you would introduce yourselves and carry on from there.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Melanie Erickson, Health and Human Services Supervisor for the Child and Family Unit, and also working with the Morrison County Suicide Prevention Cohort.
Morning. Morning.
Morning, Commissioners. Logan Spencer, social worker in Health and Human Services and member of the Suicide Prevention Cohort.
Morning.
Nathan Bertram, Health and Human Services Director.
Excellent. Excellent. Good morning, everyone.
Morning, everybody.
Thank you for this opportunity for Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. Whereas September is known as National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, which helps promote resources and awareness around the issues of suicide prevention. It teaches how to help others and how to talk about suicide without increasing the risk of harm. And whereas suicidal thoughts can affect anyone regardless of age, gender, race, orientation, income level, religion, or background. And whereas according to the Minnesota Department of Health, more than 808 lives were lost to suicide in 2021. Whereas suicide rates were highest in young adults, middle age, and over 85 in 21 and 22 in Minnesota. And whereas Morrison County is committed to suicide prevention by supporting the local Morrison County Suicide Prevention Cohort, the Morrison Todd Wadena Community Health Board Suicide Prevention Team, as well as maintaining membership in the Rivers and Lakes Suicide Prevention Coalition. And whereas everyone in our communities can play a role in preventing suicide, we all need the occasional reminder that we are all silently fighting our own battles. A simple phone call, message, or hug can go a long way towards helping someone realize there is hope and suicide is not the answer. And whereas everyone can raise awareness of this issue by participating in events such as Chalk It Up, Light It Up Purple on September 10th, and attending free trainings offered by our coalition partners. And whereas all share the support that is available during mental health crisis through the 988 Lifeline by call, text, or chat. And whereas there is no single cause of suicide, the Minnesota State Suicide Prevention Plan supports healthy and empowered individuals, families, and communities, coordinates effective programs, promotes suicide prevention as a core component of healthcare services, increases the timeliness and usefulness of the data systems related to suicide, and sustains suicide prevention efforts. And whereas we can all help prevent suicide, make it okay to talk about mental health and ask for help. Now, therefore, we, the Morrison County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim September as Suicide Prevention Month in Morrison County and urge all citizens to raise awareness and learn more about preventing suicide during this month and throughout the year.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Gentlemen, discussion. And I'll go first. Anyone that has had any dealings with anyone that has been and or has committed the S word, suicide, knows exactly what they have gone through. They've gone through a challenge to end all challenges. I cannot thank you enough for the work that is being done by the committee. It's just a small piece of the community that gathers, comes up with different thoughts, ideas. I know that's what you do. In an effort to zero out suicide prevention, whatever we wish to say. So thank you for all that. And again, I'll look to the board.
I just like to, it's surprising that 85 plus is in that. And I think your line here relates to those 85-year-olds that are silently fighting their own battles, and a simple phone call must go a long way. And that is true. And it's sad that when they're up close to the end of their life, that they want to end their life. It's really concerning. Thank you for what you do.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, I sit on a large mental health board also, and the suicide prevention with mental health being the way it is right now, I understand what you guys are dealing with, how you can reach out to people, because again, there's no right answer for this. But again, we all have to do our own part and see if we can, listen. That's the biggest thing, I hear about that. People just kind of silent, like Commissioner Lynn. So I appreciate it.
Commissioner Blaine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I look at this as that this is that call to all of us as a reminder for us to maybe look outside ourselves and to reach out to those around us to let them know that there are people that care, and we can do that in a sincere way to others that we encounter every day, and be sincere in asking them, how are you doing and how is your day, and let them know that there are people out there who care. So I appreciate this this call and this reminder to us, and thank you for your work.
Commissioner Casper.
Yeah, I would just, Mr. Chair, I would just echo the words here. This is a deep-seated issue. All of us, when we look around the room, we all know someone near and dear to us that has taken their life, and it breaks your heart. There's a hole and a wound that never heals. And for you folks to be there and to make a difference, like Mr. Blaine has said, we need to show that we care. People don't know, or they don't care how much you know, but they want to know how much you care. And we want to make a difference for the sake of Christ. Thank you, guys.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Circle back on something that Melanie mentioned on a couple of events to raise awareness. And as a campus and as a government center, we're working with our facilities manager to purple it up, or to light up entrance in purple, as well as the Chalk It Up event here. And I don't know if you have the dates, Melanie, but last year we had some folks come in and really raise that awareness. I want to say decorate, but their sidewalks, you knew folks were there, you knew support was there. It was an overt gesture here in the government center to raise awareness. And I don't know if you have any other information on it, Melanie, but appreciate that.
I certainly do. Thank you for the opportunity. Yes, I have chalk and it is all the month of September. And I thought we would wait for the craft fair to pass.
I'll be good, me.
I'll be initiating that outreach and you'll start to see that around the campus as Mr. LeBlanc mentioned. And so I'm also going to be outreaching to our communities in the entire Morrison County. So it's not just Little Falls focused. And hopefully we'll start to see those and then you can post those pictures we posted online to the Rivers and Lakes Suicide Coalition and hopefully we can have some sharing and stuff happening amongst that to promote that. I know last year in talking with Arlene Sealander, who kind of spearheaded this Chalk It Up event, she said Morrison County was one of the busiest counties for having chalk events and posting. So that made me very excited to see that awareness already. And I'm hoping we can even exceed that this year.
Excellent. And awareness is awareness is awareness is awareness. So I support that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
All right, anything further from the board? That said, we've got a motion, we've got a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Can we get a photo, Mr. Chair?
Pardon me?
Can we get a photo?
Absolutely, we can. Board stand or sit or?
Take direction from Joseph.
Take direction from Joseph.
Probably stand. I think there's 3 here.
Very good. Very good.
Always up to 6.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff, there we are. Whoever's gonna be in the middle. You have to be center.
No.
Okay, I get it.
Perfect.
Okay.
There you go. So we gotta squeeze it.
Okay, Joseph, what do you need?
That's great.
All right. Tabitha, what's your take on
All right.
it? Thank you
Awesome.
very much.
Thank you. Oh,
Thanks, Val.
All right.
Take this, I'll keep up to good work.
Thank
you. Proclamation. Have a great day. Thank you. And based upon our agenda, it's kind of, sort of, a little bit like Lid Day today. We've got a couple of lakes with us today. Lake Improvement Districts, I should say, with us today. And the first one that we'll call on is Lake Allen. And gentlemen, good morning. As you're making yourself comfortable, if you would take a seat, introduce yourselves, and simply carry on.
Good morning. I'm Ron Weaver, Treasurer of the Lake Improvement District for Lake Alexander. And
I'm Mike Faust, member at large.
Excellent.
first off, I'd like to thank Tabitha for her assistance in getting this coordinated, and it's been very easy to work with the county with her assistance. So you have our financial statement as of July 30th this year. Assets at that time were 167,000, a little over. We had some liabilities about 38,000, and cash on hand that we're projecting for the end of this year at 129,000. So reason our being here is that we want to talk to you about our budget for next year and our plans for a $200 lake improvement assessment. We have 485 property owners. Some of those own multiple properties, but 485 littoral owners, in other words, that are on the water. We'll probably get about $3,000 in interest this year, so we'll probably have funds coming in of about 100,000 for next year. If that combined with our projected checking balance gives us 123,000 to work with. And then our projected expenses there, the majority of which is between bogs and weeds, invasive weeds, I should say. We haven't had much with the bogs this year, but next year could be a different situation. If the water level rises, then the bogs tend to flow with them, and we can end up with some pretty big expenses. But right now, we're looking primarily at weed control, about 70,000, a little over 70, almost 71,000 there. And so our projected expenses would be about 86,000, and our checking balance would be back to 37,000. Mike, did you have anything to add or?
No.
Okay. And following that, we've had increase in our costs, and part of that is dealing with the DNR and also the chemicals that go into treating the invasive weeds. So that next page is from our Eurasian water milfoil delineation report. We get one for the milfoil, and we also get one for the curly leaf pondweed. This is the one that I just chose to show you as an example. About 20% of the shoreline on Lake Alexander and maybe around the islands has invasive Eurasian water milfoil. So there's a little table down there, degrees of infestation. It's that 20% shoreline is about 7.5% of the lake. And the DNR will allow us to treat up to 15%. Next one is just shows where all the mapping was done. And you can see it's primarily well, it's around the entire lake. The next page or slide shows the locations and density of the water milfoil on Lake Alexander. So it's predominantly on the south shore and the west end. And then next slide shows the various eight areas that the mapping company determined should be treated. All told, 63 acres. But DNR approved only a little over 30%. So we're not able to treat all of the milfoil that is out there. Then there was, next slide, there was a suggestion that we might do some hand pulling in that area there over on the east end. The reason for hand pulling is that there's other native milfoil in that area, and we're only allowed to deal with the Eurasian water milfoil, that invasive species. So brings us to the last slide. This is where, when they did the survey, they also came across a little bit of curly leaf pondweed, and it's more of a sub note there at this point because we weren't going after the curly leaf until the spring. So the idea of the treatments are to treat the weeds when they're started to begin to approach maturity. The curly leaf is in the spring, and the Eurasian water milfoil tends to be later in the summer, July and August, and that's when we want to get them with the chemicals. Anything? Mike's been, this is the second year. We were both reelected to 2-year terms. And I think I've been here over 10 times. Each time asking for money.
And loving every second. of it.
Yeah, I love it every second. And so that's where we're at today. So
Mr. Chair,
Please,
I'll make a motion to approve Lake Alexander's budget and levy.
got a motion,
Second for more discussion.
and we've got a second. For more discussion, Commissioner Winter, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, you brought up a couple points here. The DNR had a hard time working with them. Why would they only allow 30% of the water to be treated?
Well, that's a very good question, Randy. We've been dealing with that for quite some time. I cannot answer that very well.
They don't give you an answer either.
I would probably have to defer that to our chairperson, Bill Faber, who does a lot of contact with
They
him.
don't very well.
But that is a good question. We've never been able to get, except, I'm gonna make an exception. When we first launched, you're limited to only 15% of the acreage,
Okay.
total acreage of the lake. And we did get an exemption that first year because we were just, overwhelmed by all of the milfoil.
And then my last question is you're asking for $200. Is
Correct.
that an increase, same, or what is that? And I'm assuming you had an annual meeting, you're not doing.
Right, we have our annual meeting. It was well attended. We had about 49 people that stayed over that Saturday morning, which is always a hard crowd to entice on a nice summer morning. And they did favor an increase from where we were before to $200, which seems to be about our benchmark number. We had worked down our savings considerably, and we feel that 200 would be a good number to stay with as did the vote.
Well, thanks for that information. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Blaine?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ron, Mike, thank you for the excellent report to the county board here this morning. We've had a extreme drought this year. I'm just curious, and this is probably one of the first years of quite a few I haven't been on the lake this year. Where's the water level at on Lake Alec this year with this drought?
It's down about 14 inches or so from the spring. It's not the lowest it's ever been, but it is quite.
Probably, as you stated before, the only benefit with a really low water level is it tends to keep the bogs and the vegetation in place there.
Is that it does make the weeds appear thicker.
Yeah, there's we have those trade-offs for everything in life and everything too, but thank you for your report this morning.
I'm gonna add on to my motion to approve their performance plan too. I think there needs to be that 3: performance plan, budget, and levy.
And I'll second.
Okay, very good. And gentlemen, I would just like to say thank you for this financial statement. I'm the guy that stands up in front of everybody and says, I'm not a financial guy, but I can understand these figures. Very clear, very simple, very much to the point. I appreciate that. And the question that Commissioner Winter had was the same one I wrote down. How come you can only treat so much? And we don't know the answer, and that's fine. That's not an issue.
See if we can come back with a better.
Yeah. Just curious.
In your 11th year when you come back.
11. But otherwise, gentlemen, you, as you said, you had an annual meeting, and I'm assuming overwhelmingly it was, yeah, we have to stay from the property owners, that we have to stay at a $200 figure. Obviously, I'm pretty much convinced that it wasn't 100%. Things like that just normally aren't, but maybe it was.
It was unanimous.
It was unanimous.
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. That's a positive.
You have to keep in mind that $200 for most of the property owners is minor protection package for considering the value of their property.
Absolutely, absolutely. Gentlemen, Commissioner Casper?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. I was just gonna tell Ron, that's a great t-shirt. I want one like that. Yeah,
I got it from the county, and I only get to wear it twice a year, at our annual meeting in a year, so it doesn't show much wear.
Commissioner Casper, I think you're gonna get a new one, maybe.
it kind of looks that way. But my question is, and speaking on naivety, the question is, I see you spent 10,000 for bogs. How do you go about tending to them, or that's just in savings for the fight of the bog? How do you, or what is the process of getting rid of the bogs when they float up?
They've been drugged to an access point on the lake and hauled away.
Okay, very good.
There have been some occasions in the past where we were staking them. And we found out we can't use metal stakes, they have to be wood stakes.
I see.
The wood stakes never held, so then we'd end up treating the same bog over and over. And so the decision was made to just haul them away,
Load them out.
and then we're done. It's a one-time deal as opposed to chasing that bog around, recycling it. And then they find the old wood stakes still in the bog, and they put new wood stakes. That was a pass.
Okay, well, thank you, Ron.
Great question, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Gentlemen,
Mr. Chair.
I'll look to the board. Anything further? Got a motion? We've got a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a
gentlemen.
good day.
Gentlemen.
I'm going to just quick note, Nick had shared with me, the property owners have been concerned about the VRBO situation. And we understand that that's going to be handled in the next few years. So we appreciate hearing that. Be glad to report that back.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, that was Lake Alec, and now we're gonna turn to Sullivan Lake. Gentlemen, if you would, you're all welcome. There's plenty of room. That's all it took. They're all coming.
Morning.
Good morning. Please, gentlemen, if you take a chair, introduce yourselves and carry on from there.
I am Dean Johnson. I'm treasurer for Sullivan Lake Improvement District.
Ed Jensen, co-chair for Flint.
Steve Huda, the secretary. Mike, the religious at large. Learning.
Excellent. Welcome, gentlemen.
So you were sent some information of, I see you got Dean up first, so we'll let Dean go first. He's with the treasurer.
Okay, so we are here today to state our case. We are asking for the $100 assessment to stay the same as of now. We just met with, and so the numbers you see on the 3-year proposal, that will not change. We just had a meeting with Lake Sullivan Association, and we will not be receiving any funds this year. Our gambling is not doing well. So we were told on Saturday morning that there are no funds for us. And so we will need to stay with the $100 assessment. We have enough money for next year. As you can see on my estimates, we will probably run into trouble in 2026 or 2025 if the acreage goes up. And I do understand Lake Alexander's about their how many acres you can treat, because the most we have ever been able to treat is around 80 acres. And the DNR is very strict on how many acres you can actually treat.
It must be because, Mr. Chair, it must be because of the amount of chemical.
It has to be the chemicals.
Ratio or something.
But Sullivan is down about 30 of the heat. Steve watches it real close. We're down about 32. Yeah, down 2 inches.
I put the dock in.
So there is no water flowing out of Platte River right now. But it's a clear as the lake has been since I can remember. But the weed growth is immense because of how clear it is. But the lake's in really good shape. The fishing was good on we're all pretty avid fishermen and there's no complaints about the fishing. And, like I said, our checkbook is in good shape right now. But unless our, gambling picks up, we will probably have to, change our assessments.
And if I may interrupt, Mr. Chair, the gambling, when you say gambling, is that from the Lake Association?
Yes.
So do they have like raffles or?
And the pull tabs raffle,
So obviously,
meat raffles, yeah.
people aren't gambling as much. That would be the reason.
Competition in the bars, right, pull bets
Okay,
from other clubs.
okay. Answers my question.
Is there other questions you have for me as far as the numbers go?
What are you talking about going up per resident?
Staying the same. with 100.
Staying the same add-on.
Staying the same as 100 right now. We are in good shape for next year.
And you also had a annual meeting,
Yes,
and I'm just asking the question, was it also overwhelming?
Yes.
Overwhelming, to say 100%, if you will, yes, we need to stay at 100?
yes, we had, everybody agreed to
Okay,
staying the same at 100.
very good, very good.
The water quality and clarity offered us a unique opportunity this year. We have water coming in from a couple different locations, which typically makes it muddy but this year we have clarity, so we are doing a new survey, actually this week, through Freshwater, and that's what, we don't have the information back yet, so we don't know if we're gonna have milfoil or any other additional invasive species. But we're gonna be spending some additional funds, for that this week. One of the questions that, the president of our split asked was that whether or not there's grants available, for the future, if in 2026, we run into some financial issues. We haven't asked for anything yet, for a while, so it's just kind of up there. I spoke with Bobby a little bit before the meeting here about some other issues that are coming up, and I heard Alec Lake talk about the same thing with the VRBOs, the Airbnbs. We have several on the lake. And I know a lot of lids count boats or docks. We count property owners. But when you have a property owner that has 15 or 20 different boats on the lake coming out of their Airbnb or their VRBO, that creates an issue for us. And so how do you count that? And we're not sure what you guys are gonna decide about those, but that's one of the questions that I had for Bobby, was to find out where that's heading. The additional thing that we're looking for to assess other individuals on the lake is that we have several properties across the road from the lake. And they have they have easements down to the water, and they have docks and boats. Currently, we have 8 of them that are not being noticed by the county and getting the special assessment. And so we were looking into how do we vet that and get that information to you guys and to the users of the lake and the landowners. And again, we had 100% agreement within our board to look into that. And we're just wondering how you guys would help us with that. And that's what I was asking Bobby about, was to get there. How do we get there? We had Deb Gruber help us before. Since she's since left, we've kind of lost our way. And so we're looking for some help there. And that'll bring in a little bit more income to help us.
Sure.
And so that's kind of how we're sitting there. So,
And it's fair. I mean,
Yeah.
they should be charged, right? They have easements.
exactly. So that's kind of what we're doing, and that's kind of what we talked about. We just had a recent election. Dean and I were reelected for another 2 years. Steve's already been here a year, and then Mike is our newest member, took over for Jim Hill, who stepped away. And so we're all up to date with all of that, and we had a pretty good outcome. We've had the highest number of ballots that we've received since I've been involved for 4 years. So that was a good thing. We got more people involved, and that's a good thing.
All right. Anything further?
I just have a question. Have you guys ever had any zebra mussels or anything in your lake yet?
We checked, and we, during the last meeting with LSA this last Saturday, we imposed upon the people that were there to, when they pull their docks, to look for everything, look at anything. This is I guess maybe I forgot to say, the unique opportunity having the survey done. The water clarity is so good that they're gonna go in 5 feet of water along the entire shoreline with the scuba diver and look for any invasive species that we may, that might have started, because, the weeds are up high.
And on that note, being if you're having those surveys, don't forget to apply for our AIS grant from the county.
Okay.
All right, and make sure you tell us that you had surveys done, because
Okay,
that's one requirement before you get any funding for any chemical.
okay.
Anything further from the board? Commissioner Bland?
I just need to ask, what do you attribute the, it seems like you have far greater water clarity this year, than before, and I appreciate Commissioner Lear's question on invasive species, because usually where you have a lot of, zebra mussels, that helps, clean the water out, but then you get all the weeds and weed growth and that. If you don't have those, organisms out there cleaning the lake for you, how do you attribute such a high level of water clarity?
Mud Lake. On the west side of the lake, we have an inlet that comes out of Mud Lake, which is a really large, several thousand area swamp with a lake in it. Slough. And so when the water's high, that muddy water runs into the west end of the lake. And so, and the water runs out on the northeast corner up on Black River. So as it comes in, it spreads itself out, and that sediment, when the water's high, we have trouble with clarity. But this year, there's no water coming in. Actually, the water, I think, is going out on that end. And then the Platte River is completely dry, bone dry, and dirt. So we have no water leaving. So it just causes the sediment to settle, and
We get a lot of tamarack stained water coming in from that. Yeah, it's tamarack stained, so it's a lot of time. I live down on that west end, and it's like river water most of the summer if we get a lot of rain. Because I can notice going down in that East Bay, how much clearer the water is always down there from where I live, because I'm up there where Mud Lake drains in. A couple doors down, I got a culvert coming across the highway, coming across the Fordville Road. And that's direct runoff, so that flows right in.
Tea-colored water.
Yep.
And that's
Exactly.
So then, Mr. Chair, if I may, so then I'll ask you guys the same question, and obviously you guys probably have, are experiencing, probably are in that area experiencing some of the greatest drought in the county. Water level on Sullivan Lake compared to a year ago, or average, where are you at right now?
Last year was up because we had rain.
Yep.
The year before it was down. So at the end of my dock, this is where I measured, sorry. We're down from the year prior, about 2 inches. So we're lower since I've lived there.
It lower than you were 2 years
Years ago,
which is also very,
yeah, it's very low.
so, compared to, last year at this time.
Last year was fine.
Yeah, but then in the fall, it was, we're still lower. This is the lowest I've ever seen it.
On Sullivan Lake.
But the farmers could probably agree it's probably the worst summer they've had too.
Yeah.
It's been pretty bad.
It's
In that area especially.
Yeah, and especially in your the northeast part of the county, it's been brutal. Thank you, gentlemen.
Commissioner Casper?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I was just going to ask, does the Corps of Engineers have a dam of sorts over in the northeast? Or is that part of the reason water's so low to start with?
No. Okay, they put that dam in several years ago, back in the 40s, several years ago, back in the 40s. And it was to establish a greater shoreline for the riparian owners back then. And they're not gonna change it. There's plans to build a new dam. Everything's been ordered and all the assessments have been done and measurements and everything else, but they're having trouble with the landowners to get permission in there. If you're familiar with the dam over on the Rum River in Onamia. It's supposed to be just like that. It's not gonna change the water level or keep it at a certain level. It's going to, it just allows it to, leave. The waters are allowed to leave to fill in Round Lake, and of course, it's part of the Mississippi chain here, so that's not gonna change anything for us. It's not gonna increase the level. It's just gonna maintain it as the way it's been over the years. But if you had a dock on the lake or a boat lift on the lake, you know that at least twice or three times a year, you need to change the location of your dock or your lift just to get your boat in or to keep your dock out of the water, because it goes up and down as much as it does. But it's a great lake. It's clear. It's great for swimming and fishing. So good activities lake.
I don't know if you were there at the end of the meeting, they talked about the dam. Were you there?
No, he was gone.
Oh, so the dam, so they're feeling that the water is running underneath the dam. So the new dam will have pilings. So we are losing water even if it's below level going underneath. So the new dam they're proposing is a bigger wing dam, and they're doing pilings that won't allow the seepage underneath, so maybe it'll maintain the level. So it's still running out, they feel.
Okay,
Running out around too.
because I was gonna say, we're gonna have to get wheels on the boats pretty quick.
So anyways,
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, anything further?
Mr. Chair,
Please.
I'll make a motion to approve Sullivan Lake performance plan budget and levy.
Got a motion?
I'd second that.
Got a motion in a second. I will ask for further discussion. I think we beat it up already, but I was asking this. Hearing none, gentlemen, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes.
Thanks,
Thank you.
gentlemen.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very kindly.
Be in touch.
Next time.
All right, our next item of business is land services. Ms. Amy? Morning.
Morning, Amy.
Morning.
I'll have the t-shirts here for you guys too.
All right.
All right, I have a couple of items for you today. The first one is to consider the interim use permit request for Ron and Donley Gruber. This is to establish a limited rural business, specifically a creamery. This was recommended for approval by the planning commission in the last meeting. And this is recommended with 5 conditions. And those conditions are: the property owner shall have the creamery wastewater evaluated by a licensed septic system designer and shall provide the land services department with a wastewater treatment plan that is approved by all necessary agencies. The property owner shall provide proof of proper creamery licensure and permitting from the United States Department of Agriculture or Minnesota Department of Agriculture or of another appropriate agency. 3, no on-site retail sales of creamery products shall occur. 4, the property owner shall arrange for the Morrison County FEMA officer to review the site and shall fix any open lot conditions the FEMA officer feels must be addressed. And 5, the interim use permit shall be valid until the following individuals no longer own the property: Don Gruber, Darlene Gruber, and Alex Peltz.
Gentlemen, I look for a motion.
So I moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second for the discussion.
Mr. Chair, again, listening to the owner or the planning commission on the condition 4, and this is where Amy,
Yes.
is that something that, is it gonna tie up more time for a feedlot officer to come out there? And they really don't have a set time. I mean, it could be once a year, 4 times a year. If you can kind of explain that one, please.
Yeah, Mr. Cherry, couple of developments since the meeting that I should share is the property owner is aware of how many, because they have under 10 acres right now, it's considered a small lot. And we do limit the number of animal units that can be there. And the property owner is aware of how many they can have. They have, in the meantime, though, entered into a purchase agreement with a neighboring property to buy some more acreage, which would increase the allowable animal units to meet their needs. And so, in my opinion, Mr. Chair, this is a non-issue as far as having to follow up. They're very aware and are certainly making arrangements to have the acreage that
they need to be able to grow their business as they see.
And then my final question again, I believe it's 25 animal units with goats or something like that,
Correct.
based on what they have. They would have to come for another variance if they purchase this this additional acreage, is that right? Which I don't see.
No, they wouldn't
Okay.
need to. If they get that done, they can provide us with they'll combine that with this existing parcel. So their permit, it'll be a non-issue.
So whatever 10 acres plus or whatever, then if it's 40
Correct.
animal units, that automatically come, okay.
Yes, correct, yes.
And I will say that I was not at the planning commission meeting, but I did view it on video. And it seemed to me, and maybe this was just me, there was a big question on the septic system.
Yes.
And that's the way I took it anyway. And it since then has been decided, if there's a licensed septic system person, that can be rectified through that person.
So essentially what needs to happen is, because this is creamery can produce a high strength waste.
Yep.
That a typical traditional system may not be able to handle. So essentially what they need to do is meet with the septic designer, talk about what the process is gonna be, how much wastewater they anticipate to produce, and that'll decide whether or not their existing septic system can serve this, or if they need to place a holding tank and handle that separately.
Very good, that answered that perfectly clear. Anything further from the board? Okay, we've got a motion, we've got a second. Hearing no further discussion, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Last item I have is to consider the conditional use permit request to expand to a tier 2 dairy and swine feedlot. This is a request that would include the addition of a 72 by 296 foot freestall barn, a 72 by 86 parlor, and a 194 by 284 manure pit. This request is by Alan and Diane Herzog. This is also recommended for approval by the planning commission with one condition. And that condition was that the open lots on the farmstead shall be brought into compliance with the applicable state and county standards within 1 year of completing construction of the new barn.
Gentlemen, I look for a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Got a motion and a second for the discussion.
Bobby seconded it, that's all.
I also was not at the meeting for this, but I did review it. And what I saw mostly with this thing is the two gentlemen that were here, and forgive me for their names, that presented to the planning commission appeared to be so on target. And they knew their business, they knew what they were doing, they knew what they were asking for, and obviously the planning commission said, yes, we will move this to the county board. That's just my comment on it. I thought that they were very prepared and knew their business. That was just my. Anything further from the board? That motion, we've got a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Ms. Amy, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
And keeping up with our agenda, our next item of business is number 10 on the agenda, Public Works Report. Tony, good morning.
Morning, Tony.
Morning, Tony.
We got a laundry list this morning, so should be fun.
Paying bills, right?
And some bills, we're talking about some building updates. Talking about some equipment, and then I have one last minute addition. Steel Paul's reached out to me, so we're gonna discuss a request that they have, and there's a time constraint on it. All right, so our first couple items are going to be looking at authorizing or requesting authorization for resolutions to issue a certificate of final payment. So our first item here will be a request to authorize contract number 303. This was with Landwehr Construction. This is our box culvert contract that was led in 2022. Because of material procurement issues, Most of those boxes got installed this year, so 3 of the 4 locations were performed here in 2022. This has since been completed. As we went through this process, our quantities were very accurate. Our final work certified for these projects came to 97.93% of that contract, or $200,465,942.78. So I would request the board to authorize the certificate for final payment for contract number 303.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second for the discussion? Hearing none, gentlemen, for the next few items, these are gonna be all roll call votes. So we're gonna start off with Commissioner Wincher.
Aye.
Lemire.
Aye.
Lane.
Aye.
Casper. Myself, Commissioner Jelinski is an aye vote. That motion passes. Next.
Our second item is a request for authorization for resolution for certificate of final payment for contract number 304. This was a joint project with the city of Little Falls with the contractor Arlen Larson performing work on 4th Street or our County Road 257. This contract was also let in 2022, and again, because of material procurement issues, the contract extended into 2023. It has since been completed. They're filing some punch list items, but we should no longer be certifying any more work. So this contract ended up at a 97.06% of the original bid amount. So certified work today is $4,613,463.78. So I request the board to authorize certificate for final payment for contract number 304.
Gentlemen,
Second.
got a motion, got a second, discussion? Hearing none, Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Lane.
Aye.
Casper.
Aye.
Wincher. Aye. And myself, Commissioner Jelinski is an aye vote. That motion passes.
Our next one in similar fashion is a request for resolution for final payment on contract number 307. This is a contract with CNL Excavating and City of Royalton on our County Road 234 of the North Hawthorne. This was a joint project with the City of Royalton. CNL Excavating did a fantastic job this summer. They came in and they performed excellent work and continued to get things done ahead of schedule. So this project was able to meet our Labor Day deadline, and the students at the Royalton High School were able to utilize our new pedestrian improvements and ADA accessibility items, as well as the new street and parking lanes. We did have a couple of change orders on this project. There were some unsuitable soils on it that resulted in a small increase over our actual bid amount. We had to change order into a soil correction for about a quarter mile of the project. So we had to bring in a more suitable material to keep that road up to snuff. So our original contract was for $1.7 million. Our final certified work to date was $1,810,404,000. So that becomes 104% of that original contract. But I would request the board to authorize certificate for final payment of contract number 307.
Gentlemen, for a motion,
So move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
got a motion, have a second, discussion? Hearing none, Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
Casper.
Aye.
Myself is an aye vote. Commissioner Wincher.
Aye.
Lemire.
Aye.
That motion passes. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just a question for Tony. I remember you coming here earlier and there was some different pedestrian movement at the high school because of this project. Have you heard word how that's all worked out?
So far, it's been going really well. So what Commissioner Casper is referring to previously, where that intersection is, so County Road 26 runs east-west through Royalton, 54 runs south by the high school, and then County Road 234 North Hawthorne goes north. Our reconstruction project is for County Road 234, so the north leg of that intersection. As we went through this project, we had some input from the City of Royalton schools and the actual City of Royalton, and they expressed some pedestrian concerns. So previously, before this project, there was a sidewalk running along 26 east and west. And when you got to that intersection on the west side of it, students would go from the north to the south. And then when they got to the southwest corner of County Road 234, 54, 26 intersection, they would then walk east across. So when they're walking east across, they were then on the side of the high school, but during that process, they'd have to walk in front of all the buses. And our curb sections in that area were pretty flat. So as we evaluated it and to bring more attention to the pedestrians in that area, what we ended up doing is changing the pedestrian access route. So those pedestrians now come along the east-west leg on the north side of 26. And instead of crossing on County Road 50, Perkisaw 54, they cross on North Hawthorne or 234. So they'll continue west to the other side of 234, which is a lower volume road because all the school traffic is typically on the south side. They then cross from the north to the south to the school side or to the southeast corner, south 54 there. And a couple of other improvements we did is we made a little bubble. We bubbled our curb section out a little bit. And what that does is it allows those students or pedestrians to be out in the open a little more while still protected by a curb section, but they're now more visible for the traffic, both the eastbound traffic and the westbound traffic. Additionally, we had a request to install a rapid flash beacon, which is an RFB. You've seen a couple of them around town. There's 2 on Trunk Highway. The Trunk Highway here in town in Little Falls near our middle school. So what it is it's a very large fluorescent yellow sign, and then we have flashing yellow beacons. When pushed, those lights activate and just brings some additional attention to those students crossing or any pedestrians crossing. So far, we haven't heard any negative feedback. We did make an additional improvement there. We added some cross hatching. The school was concerned about buses that were coming up to the 54 or to the 26 intersection northbound to turn east or west on that. And they were having traffic come up and sneak in on the right side of them to make a right-hand turn. We added some cross hatching there to hopefully eliminate some of that. I haven't heard a full report on that. It was a very cost-effective way to try to mitigate that. But regardless, the pedestrian bump out and that rapid flashing beacon should provide a large safety improvement for those students trying to cross the road.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Blake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tony, refresh my memory, did the Royalty School District utilize Safe Routes to School funding at all in this project?
They've used them in the past, but not in this project. So the sidewalk that we added along the west side of County Road 234 North Hawthorne, that was part of the city of Royalton's participation in the project to add that.
Okay.
For their community.
And just to follow up about Commissioner Blair, about 5-10 years ago, where the Dairy Queen is, that was used all the way up to 26. That was Safe Routes.
Safe Routes to School. Okay. Okay.
Safe Routes to School is an application process. It's very competitive.
Yes.
And a lot of times, we do have good projects, but when the city isn't thinking of that beforehand, a lot of times the solicitation window is multiple years out. In this case, when they said, well, maybe we could use Safe Routes to School at that time, it would have delayed the project multiple years. And this project had been in the queue for a few as well. So we wanted to get it delivered for those improvements.
Thank you.
Anything further? Gentlemen, we've got a motion, we've got a second.
And that one's already.
It's for us.
Yep, yep.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry. Got it. Thank you. Lots of discussion after.
Right.
All right, Tony, you're on.
Make sure I'm on the right one.
Okay. So our next one, this will be our number 4 agenda item. This is again another resolution requesting certificate of final payment. This one's for contract number 309. This project was performed by JAAK LLC. This was a 2023 HSIP Chevron project. If you remember last fall, I came to the board asking for a resolution to support an application for some additional HSIP funds that came available. And we were selected for this project, and it became a project that was 100% federally funded. So there were no county funds that utilized it, and it provided a pretty nice upgrade to a lot of our Chevron signing that was aging. So Jack Construction came in, performed it. It's a very quick project for them. You'll notice, you'll see a lot more brighter chevrons. So these are the yellow arrow signs along some of your curves. There's a massive safety improvement, especially at night. This contract came in almost at 100%. The final completion number was $77,543, which is 99.84% of that contract. So our engineering staff did a very nice job estimating and coming up with the quantities there, and then there was no field changes. So I request the board to authorize a resolution for certificate of final payment for contract number 309.
Look to the board for a motion.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Second. Got a motion, a second for the discussion,
Mr. Chair, if I may.
please.
Quickly, the revenue, the grant money that came from the federal government to support this effort, then just literally becomes a pass through the county to the LLC. Is that correct?
So how these federal funds, especially HSIP funds, work is that we front the funds up front. So the county of Morrison paid that contract right after the bat. After we made that payment, then we submit reimbursement. Reimbursement process is pretty quick, obviously. So we've already received our funding back from this.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Further discussion? Hearing none, another roll call vote, Commissioner Casper. And myself as an aye vote, Commissioner Winchell.
Aye.
Lemire.
Aye.
Lane.
Aye.
And that motion passes. Thank you, Tony. Next.
And one more request for authorization for certificate of final payment. This one is for contract number 310 with Anderson Brothers Construction Company of Brainerd. This was our bituminous project or contract for the summer. You know, it encompassed a lot of different roads, our County Road 253 reconstruction project, our County Road 254, our County Road 255, our CASA 47. So there's a significant amount of pavement that got completed. You know, here we had kind of an up and down contract. We had some soil issues on our County Road 254 in the reconstruction portion that ended up having that portion of the contract overrun a little bit. Fortunately, some of our other contracts inside there underran. So we came through as a contract as a whole, we came to 101.8% of the total contract value. And that's certified work today is $3,494,816.60. So with that, I would request the authorization to issue final payment on contract number 310.
Gentlemen, I look for a motion.
So move, Mr. Chair.
I'd second it. Got a motion, a second, further discussion? Hearing none. I'll start a roll call vote with an aye vote. Commissioner Winchell.
Aye.
Lemire.
Aye.
Lane.
Aye.
Casper. Aye. That motion passes. Thank you, Tony.
Mr. Chair, if I just want to make one comment on, you know, we just approved payment on 4 contracts here. And we had a couple that came in, you know, just slightly under projected costs. We had a couple that came in just slightly over. And I think, you know, I think credit should go to Tony and his staff there in an era where we have at times seems like runaway inflation on things and accessibility of things. To deliver this much work, I don't know what the total would be on these 4, but it's got to be north of $10-12 million that we were able to come in and get this stuff that close to the budget. I think is noteworthy, Mr. Chair.
Totally agree.
Mr. Chair, I really do appreciate those comments. And, you know, Morrison County has a fantastic engineering staff. We have a very dedicated assistant county engineer, BJ Prom, a very dedicated construction engineer in John Castreba. And then our engineering technicians, you know, Sean Henry, Kyle Muncie, Brady Becker, Tom Daniels. they spend countless hours outside on our projects, making sure that we're able to deliver these within our budgets or our targeted amounts. And when we do, run into situations where either there may have been a plan error or different site conditions, they have the foresight to work with our contractors and make it a good environment. So all that credit really does go to our engineering department. We're very, very fortunate to have them. And that's one of the reasons Morrison County receives very competitive bids when we do have our construction projects, because we are a county that has a contractor-friendly working environment. And as long as I'm in this position, it's going to stay that way. So I really do appreciate those comments.
And Tony, to that point, and you show your true leadership there. You recognize your staff and their efforts. Will you please extend the board's appreciation for their work and let them know that that does not go unnoticed by members of this board?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
All right. We paid some bills.
Paid some bills. Now we're looking at one of our larger bills and one of our larger headaches over the last year. So what you're going to get here is a Public Works Building Addition update. Put together a little presentation for you. It's kind of fun. My wife picked out the autumn bronze colors. I had it all very black and white. She said that was kind of cold. So kudos to Megan Hennett on that. So as we go through here, just a little recap on our projects. So, in May of 2022, we had a fire in our Public Works back shop. And, ultimately it was the best decision to demo that building and put up an addition that would be safe for our equipment and safe for our employees operating in there. So fast forward a little bit, we had our project design done, and we had a bid letting on March 2nd of 2023. We moved forward with that. We received very nice bids from multiple contractors. There was over 16 bid packages on that. And with that, we awarded contracts on March 14th of 2023. And originally they had a May start, but one of the contractors, a local contractor, they had the demolition package for the building, requested to start early. We were able to provide that. And so construction this year actually started April of 2023. And we really appreciate some of those early starts and those contractors wanting to get this project done, because as a county and with this building being insured, we're looking for a final deadline for insurance reimbursement of May of 22. So that means we have to be occupied in that building by May of 24, not 22. By May of 24, so a 2-year span from when the event happened to when they're back up and running. So right now we had that project start in April of 23, and our current schedule, we're actually a little bit ahead of this, but I'm going to leave it as is just in case there's any hiccups. But we're projected for completion and owner occupation in February of 2024. To go to this next one, this was our preliminary construction schedule. This was what was issued at the pre-construction meeting. You can see that orange red line running right through the middle. That's about where we're at. So when you look at that, if you really zoomed in, you can notice that we're about 2 weeks ahead of schedule. So hopefully it stays that way. Hopefully over that. But so overall, a lot of the major components have been completed. So right now, from a pay standpoint, we paid out about 41% of the overall cost of this building so far. And then I anticipate next week that moving up to about 50% of the total cost. So we're right in line with where we should be. So as you go through our pictures, I put together a little slideshow. You can kind of see some of the progress that we made. So in April of 23, our fire damaged building started coming down. This was performed by a local contractor, Gibbon Excavators. So that next one, you can kind of see it was quite the operation. They were able to salvage a lot of materials for different things, and that helped keep our bid price for the demolition of that building at a reasonable cost. That's what it looks like when it was all gone. So just it's an open lot. In the future, there'll be a little bit more of our parking lot that'll get paved out. It'll be a fenced in area where we can have some secure stuff for whether or not it's pipe culverts or other items that we want inside our yard. So next page here, this is gonna be your overall site layout. We've seen this in the past, but I just thought I'd bring it back up here. It gives you a good idea of what it's gonna look like. So that old building used to be on the north side of our old one. Right there. And that previous picture, you can show it, you can see it's all gone now, so that'll be an asphalt parking lot. If we go to our next one, you'll start seeing, this is the actual dirt work, so late May, early June, contractor was in there performing their soil correction. Now, if you remember, we took a kind of an opening day photo back there. When that photo was happening, we were doing a soil correction for our future building. So if you remember a little bit what our building looks like, so the goal here was for it to look like it was always there originally. I prefer to have buildings that look like they were built at one time, even if there were additions. And we've really achieved that. So our current building to the left, that's not in the crosshatched area, has our mechanics bays, and now we'll hold a bunch of our engineering department and our sign truck or sign department, which are both portions that were lost in that fire damaged building. On the right side, the part that's crosshatched, that's our new building. So that's going to be a 100 by 220 foot addition. If you go to the next page here, you'll start seeing it. So or kind of mid to late June, after that soil correction was performed, some of the forming started for our footings. We pop to the next one. See them getting poured out. This pour actually happened just right after the 4th of July. Everybody was on schedule. We've been very fortunate with our weather, so we didn't experience a lot of delays. One of the larger items, go to the next page there, and one of our fears at the beginning of this project and why we were able to accelerate some of our lighting is we were worried about precast panel construction. Just 2 years ago, precast panels were taking over a year to get. And we led this project in March, and we were able to have these panels delivered the last week of July. So if you go to the next one, you can kind of see the gravity of these panels. Each panel comes in on one truck, and it's quite the process. So essentially, they're building a giant Lego set, big rectangular panels that build it. And it took them about a week and a half to set all the panels for us to get all the way around. The next picture is kind of fun. That's the final panel going in on the project. So after that, the whole building's exterior envelope was complete. Early July, right after that, you saw your steel construction coming in. So we had a steel supplier provide these steel trusses. A company called Road and Iron is the one that set them. So you'll see them setting here. They have their own truck crane and coming along. If you go to the next one, that's kind of what it looks like after they're all set up. As they continue to move here into August, you go to the next page. The roof decking went on next, followed by a membrane. One more, and that's kind of what your final roof is looking like at this point. So that brings us all the way up to Labor Day. So that's why I'm saying we're a couple of weeks ahead of schedule. They were hoping to have it enclosed mid-September. We got to Labor Day, the whole building was enclosed at that point, which was just fantastic. And again, we're just attributing that to no weather delays and contractors that really wanted to perform the work. Go to our next page. This is our south side exterior. So you notice we have one large door in the center. That's where our trucks will enter. And then go to the next one. This will be our north. So you have two bays there. You'll see that center door. You can see all the way out that south door. And then the door on the left in this photo, that's going to be our bride room. As we went through this process, we decided that it's in the best interest for Morrison County to start having our own brine capabilities. To kind of wean ourselves off of MnDOT in the event that they can no longer help us out. Go to our next page here. So here's your building layout. This is something you've all seen before, but that's what it's going to look like at the end. So after you kind of see those exterior photos and all what it went into it, it makes a little more sense. So you have a door, center door on each side. You'll see those trucks coming in parked diagonally. It'll be a considerable change from how they were parked previously. It'll be much safer. It'll be an OSHA compliant building. And it'll just be a massive upgrade for a long, long time for Morrison County Public Works and the citizens and getting our work performed. In the upper left-hand corner, you'll see that small rectangle there. That's the brine room. And then outside will be future tanks for when we have a brine system. So that's kind of what it looks like on the inside. Right behind that skid steer, that's the brine room blockout. And so right now they're beginning to perform the interior mechanicals. So all the interior plumbing, the different waste traps, and then there'll be a centered drain running right down here, and this building will have in-floor heat. Over the next couple of months, what you'll see is the in-floor heating going in, then our concrete. A concrete floor here, probably by the end of September. Then our interior mechanicals will start happening. So we'll have a rooftop unit that'll be getting installed, upgrading that. We'll have a new boiler system going on. So when we went through this process, the current boiler system serves our office space and the existing mechanical shop. By upgrading those boilers a little bit more, we're now going to be able to include this facility. So we went from 2 boilers and then multiple furnaces in the fire damaged building to just 2 boilers. From a maintenance standpoint, that makes a lot of sense, and we'll see some efficiencies gained by that. I won't know the final numbers on what kind of efficiencies we gain until we have a year or 2 of running the system, but I'm anticipating them to be pretty significant. Following that, our interior mechanicals will start going in, so there'll be different air lines, water lines for putting trucks a little bit in this area, our electrical painting, and then eventually punch list. Again, very hopeful for occupation here in February, and we should be on track to meet the insurance obligation and retain our full insurance compensation. Any questions?
Tony, very nice job. I have a question.
Absolutely.
And the question pertains specifically to the insurance. And if you don't know the answer, that's fine. Seems kind of odd to me that whether it's a government or whether it's your own personal insurance, I don't know how it works, doesn't matter. I know how this one works. Got a 2-year window. In the world we live in today, and we're very, very, very fortunate, all this stuff just appeared. It just appeared. And how it appeared doesn't make any difference. It appeared. Could just as well have not appeared. What would have happened if 2 years go by and we're not occupied?
Well, I guess I'm going to start with giving Integrity, our construction manager, some credit.
Yep.
They've done a fantastic job. They really worked with all these different contractors who have the different packages to build this facility. It's worked with them from day one and continuing to make sure they stay on schedule. Obviously, sometimes weather or other things that are out of control can affect that. But in the question that you're asking, I'm not 100% sure what would have happened. So right now, we've been issued just over $1 million of the projected about 1.6 million of our insurance reimbursement. So that $1 million is a straight cash compensation if we were to walk away from the building. To receive that additional 500, roughly $550, you have to be occupied in your building.
Understood.
Now, if we weren't able to achieve this timeline, I'm sure we'd have some pretty hard discussions with our insurance, we're insured by MCIT. And hopefully we'd be able to come to agreement where we would receive those funds if we weren't to be able to do it. Otherwise, I'm sure there'd probably be litigation involved, and that's just costly for everyone. But at this point, I'm just very hopeful and, give a lot of credit to Integrity and the different contractors that did perform this work, and it'll be just a wonderful improvement for Morrison County Public Works and the citizens of Morrison County for their future operation.
And thank you for that. And as it is today, my question is really insignificant. And I get that, but I'm looking at a picture saying, makes no sense to me. What happens if we go past 2 years and we're not occupied? We're gonna have to go to court in material, doesn't mean.
Yeah.
Questions from the board, Commissioner Bland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tony, we're now down to 2 boilers to run the operations there. Are these natural gas fired boilers or are they electric?
they're natural gas fired. And additionally, we have 2 makeup air units in there, so when the doors open, we have overhead natural gas makeup air units that bring the ambient temperature up quicker. And how those boilers work, I think one can actually run the full facility, and the second serves as a backup, and then they rotate to extend their life. So that's how they work at this point. But yes, natural gas.
And then the follow-up question I'd have to this is, do we have backup generator at your facility there on the west side in case of electrical power outage?
We do not have a backup generator. During our design process, we evaluated it. And at that time, it was not cost imperative to have that. What we did was we decided that if in the future we wanted to add that capability, the cost to do it in the future wouldn't be that much different than the cost included. We wouldn't have seen the significant savings that would have pushed us to move forward up to that generator. That generator, we're anticipating costing about $500,000, and where our estimates on this project and where the final numbers came in, I don't think, well, I personally wasn't comfortable, and having our discussions with the board and administration at that time, we felt it'd just be probably better to wait, and if we wanted to make that upgrade in the future, then we could do so.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, please, and follow up on that, Tony and I did have a conversation with Commissioner Blaine, and when evaluating the risk, figured it was a greater risk that it would be temperature and cold that could damage our equipment or our facility, and having a gas heater, it'll continue to, we believe, it'll heat and keep things in good shape. So the trucks could still get out to get the roads cleared in a case of emergency. So that was the greater risk to be addressed.
Very well, thank you.
Questions from the board? Hearing none. Tony, good job. Thank you. That's very informative. Very informative.
All right, so what that building update kind of curtails into, and we talked about it, through this whole process, we've been evaluating a brine system to start having that capability for ourselves. So speaking with our operations manager and other supervisors, currently we receive our brine from MnDOT, and as MnDOT continues to accelerate their use of brine, we're eventually going to be in a position where they won't have the capability to help us or provide brine to us. And that's why we incorporated a brine room inside our building. The equipment, however, is not part of our project. So brine system equipment can be purchased through the state contract. And that was kind of our intentions. When I first set this up, I was considering putting it on our capital improvement inside of our normal budget items and then back funding it with fund balance. So you see an expenditure going in and then an expenditure going out. So there would be no levy increase or decrease. You just see a different revenue offsetting the purchase of it. As we continue to evaluate it and the accelerated nature of the project, I'm requesting to approve the purchase of the brine system now for a couple of reasons. Right now, this brine system is on the state contract, and that state contract will be expiring. When that contract expires, the material providers or the equipment providers are going to be changing their rates. Obviously, we've seen a lot of inflation, and I'd like to lock in the equipment purchase prior to any of those rate increases. And if in the event that we stay ahead of schedule, I could potentially have this brine system installed this year. And if it's early enough in the season, potentially start testing it ourselves and using our own system. So as we evaluated that, we started looking at our equipment on how to feed the brine system. Currently, we use pretty heavy loaders to load our trucks. And when you look at a brine system, you can't feed them with those loader buckets. The brine system or the machine that takes your salt, mixes it with water, mixes it into your storage tanks, has I believe it's what was it? It was about 100-inch wide hopper on it, and our loader bucket was 86 or something, or a little, maybe a little more than that, but it left about 6 inches on either side. So physically, unless we do have very good operators, but I'm not comfortable with dumping salt everywhere. So then it led to discussion on whether or not we need a different piece of equipment to help feed the system as well and consider it part of our brine system. So over the past years, our supervisors and our operations managers have been asking for a second skid steer. I've been kind of holding off on them. I want to make sure if we do get one, it has multiple uses. So our current skid steer is used for a lot of different dirt work in the summertime. In the wintertime, it's hooked up with snow blower. That snow blower blows off all your bridges. And they continue to ask for a second one. And as I evaluated this brine system, it was recommended to me by our supervision that a second skid steer would be a good option to feed this brine system. And then in the summertime, we could then use it additional to our other skid steer and continue to improve operations. So this morning, I'm coming to request to authorize the purchase of our physical brine system and an additional skid steer at this point. So we'll look at our first one, the brine system. The brine system is a component of 3 different pieces. There's a portion called the brine boss, and this is your actual hopper. This is where we dump in the salt and it gets mixed around. The second would be a blend boss, and what blend boss does is it circulates that saline solution and keeps it from settling out. And it also allows us the option to start trying out additional additives that could potentially decrease our salt usage and have an increase with melting salts. You know, some of the popular ones right now are what's called VT. This increases your effectiveness from beyond 5 below 0 down to 10, 15 below 0. So those are just some options that we could start experimenting with. And then we're in between on the gallon tanks. So we have a quote for 2 3,000 gallon tanks, and we also have a quote for a 5,000 gallon tank. And basically the 2 3,000s cost about the same as a 5,000. So I'm gonna have the manufacturer make the final recommendation what they think would be best for our operations. So the brine system comes up to about $175,188.16. Now, this is not a budgeted item, nor is it grant funded. So me and my accountant have spent a considerable amount of time evaluating where our fund balance is and our contributions to the building. We're comfortable making this purchase, so this will be funded through our reserve funds at the Roden Bridge. So I'd request approval to purchase the brine system for the Public Works Edition.
Gentlemen,
I'll make a motion for more discussion.
have a motion on the table.
I'd second them.
We have a motion and a second. And using rounded numbers, we're looking at $176,000.
Yeah.
$176,000. And we're looking at filling a room that we've all agreed to. This room is called your brine room, call it whatever you want to, but that's what it is. We have a brine room, but we have nothing in the brine room today, if you will. And what you're talking about, I just need to make sure we're all on the same page, is the product, the equipment to put in the brine room to make it work.
Correct.
That's our motion. Commissioner Blaine.
So I make sure I get the number right here, 175,188.16.
Yes, sir.
This is for this is separate, but let me get this right. The skid loader is not a part of this number and is yet to come.
The skid loader I have on a different RBA request, so I could separate the two.
Okay. So I have two questions with this, Tony. Number one, do we have an idea, or can you give us an idea? What would be the cost of this if we didn't have this opportunity to purchase this now and take advantage, you know, kind of your selling point on this stuff is we can take advantage of this before they reprice this again. Does this 175,180 then go to 250,000? Does it go to 200,000? Do we know where it goes?
Mr. Chair, at this point, I do not know that because the state contract gets negotiated between the state of Minnesota and the different vendors. It's the same way with all our pickups and skid steers, tractors, so on and so on. I do know that our tanks that we'll be acquiring with this are double lined poly tanks, and the market for that has seen a considerable increase this summer.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure where those contract numbers will come into, but in my opinion, I've never seen anything go backwards.
So my other question, two other questions with this, actually. My next question is, this would, if we agreed to this, and we go forward with this proposal, that outfits the brine room. Is our fleet of trucks already equipped to utilize this brine system, or do we have to also make that, or would that be an ancillary investment that would have to be made?
So currently about 2/3 of our trucks are set up with brine. And what we do is we go to MnDOT and we horse trade with them to receive brine. And as we continue to make improvements to our fleet, each truck that we order is set up with this. And regardless if we install this brine system this year, we would continue to make those improvements to our fleet.
And so, Mr. Chair, if I may, my third question with this goes back to the fiscal part of this, and so we've already committed using some ARPA money to address the cost of the building, correct? And we also have a contingency with this process too. We're running ahead of schedule. I'm assuming we're running pretty close to budget. I can't remember, and I don't have the paperwork in front of me that tells us what the amount of contingency we had, but is there the opportunity to use, if the contingency remain by completion of this project, would that be enough to cover this cost to outfit the brine room?
So with this project, we had a contingency fund of $350,000, you know, and what that was for just miscellaneous things, change orders and such. You know, at this point, we've only used 24,000 of that 350. So there is that potential that could happen. You know, at this point, you know, with the use of ARPA funds for the public works building, you know, out of our road and bridge, we're committing $500,000 to that building. And originally, prior to the ARPA funds being issued, we were talking about utilizing $1 million of our reserve funds. So to use some of the road and bridge fund to purchase this equipment, I'm very comfortable with it. And our year-end projections, working with Sherry Lewinsky, our accountant, who's very, very thorough. has us projected with all funds encumbered and including an item now that we're talking about here shortly. Will be leaving us in a comfortable spot where we have, more than 30% of our operating budget still in that reserve fund. So we do run into a natural disaster or something where we need to advance construction and get reimbursed later. We'll still be able to take on those projects and be in a comfortable fund balance. I understand the thought process, and I very much appreciate it. But I'm also very comfortable making this purchase through our reserved funds to build the bridge.
And thank you for that. And I'm not trying to go out of bounds here to create creative ways to address this, but if you following my thought process, then it leads me then to ask the question to, and I look to Mr. LeBlanc and to you. So let's say we don't incur any other expenses other than the 24,000 that's come out of the contingency to this point. And we get to the finish line and we've got, let's say we have 300,000 just for. Yeah, and that's
It's a lot.
well, and so that was my question is where does that $300,000 in the contingency get recognized? Does it get recognized back into the ARPA fund or does it get recognized back into here? Help me with that.
It won't be. It won't be.
Please, go ahead.
We already, gave them the ARPA funding for this project, so that's gone.
That's done.
It's just, when the bills come in, there'll be less money coming out of his bank account per se to pay the bills, so it would.
So that-
it's estimated, so if it don't spend it, it's spent.
So what you're saying is that the cost savings, the contingency just ends up being cost savings. So that's less expense that comes out of the public works budget to complete this project. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, I'd say we have options, but that is certainly one of them, is that it could be less money paid for out of Public Works fund balance on this project. But when we get there, we can bring that back, but that would be the cleanest and easiest, is that instead of a $500,000 expense against their fund balance, it would, if we're using 300, it would be a 200.
Exactly what I needed to know. So thank you.
Commissioner Casper.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I was just gonna ask Tony, can you help us? How effective is this brine versus the typical chloride that's sprayed on these roads?
So what the brine allows our trucks to do is if you apply just chloride or rock salt out the back end in the wintertime, what you see is that chloride will hit the ground and bounce. And depending the state of the road at that time, some of it's going to stick to the road, some of it's going to roll to the shoulder. And what brine allows us to do is it's sprayed, so it's a salt and water solution, saline solution, and what it allows it to do is as it's sprayed down, more of our actual rock salt sticks to the road. And what MnDOT's been up to, and why we have concerns that they're continuing to ramp up their brine usage, is they're starting to make slurries. So they're mixing their brine water at a higher rate, so a much higher concentration of salt. And when they're spraying that down, that's how they're getting that application on the road. You'll notice over the past couple of years, you'll see trucks out pre-treating. So you'll drive a bridge and there will be these lines down that. And what MnDOT's doing is they're applying a slurry solution onto the bridge. And when that ice event comes, the salt's already there, it never ices over. So as we, if we get this application, we'll then be able to start experimenting, get more of that with ourselves. So we'll probably initially start with how we're just operating. And as we start exploring different additives and try to increase our effectiveness, our ultimate goal is to utilize less salt or the same amount of salt, because that's one of our driving points in our actual operational budget is the funds that it costs to make salt. Again, salt every year seems to go up. From an environmental standpoint, if there's ways that we can use less salt, that's best for everything. But we still have to be able to provide safe road start communities. And so this just gives us another tool in our toolbox that we can start experimenting with to continue to provide a high level of performance for the constituents and the travel public inside Morrison County.
One more question, Mr. Chair. What about, up by Sullivan Lake? I understand that they put magnesium chloride on the road. What can you tell us about that? They claimed the gentleman at the chairman up there of Sullivan Lake said that, because it's safer being spread around the lake. What can you tell us about that?
I don't have a lot of data on magnesium chloride at this time, so I'm not going to expound on that. I do know that there's many different products out there. And as we continue to move forward, we'll evaluate all the best options they could are.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Lynch.
Got a couple, again, the money thing, I understand that. I mean, is whether we spend it from this department or that, it's gonna cost $170 thousand. My question to you is, we all agreed that we were gonna put this brine in. We knew also that it would not have the equipment in it. What happens if we just leave it sit? And you said you brought up, we're gonna horse trade with the state of Minnesota to get that back. Is there a savings there by, rather than spending $170 thousand that would continue horse trading with, and I don't know what else we could use the brine room for, hanging towels, I don't know, so.
Yeah, absolutely. The thought process by including that brine room was for us to have that capability in the future, whether it was next year, 5 years from now, whatever it is. You have a room that's set up mechanically. So part of that brine room we installed proper mechanics to supply a brine system, your water, and then also the electrical power to make sure that we could perform if we already did install it. And the financial benefit to it right now, obviously, equipment's not gonna get any cheaper, and it will start being able to use some of the different products that MnDOT doesn't use, or we can experiment and see if we can find something that is more effective for our purposes. This county roads and county highways are much different than a MnDOT trunk highway, and our funding is considerably different. But yeah, so say if we put off this purchase, we could continue to have a very good relation with MnDOT, and they're still acceptable currently for us to continue to take brine. But as they start to change their practices and go to higher volumes of brine and higher volumes of slurry, what then happens is we're not gonna be able to receive as much, and eventually maybe nothing, unless they upgrade their system to something massive. That's probably what will happen in the future.
Thank you.
Sir.
Commissioner Blaine, did you have something?
Well, I have a question for Tony, but procedurally, do we have a motion and second on this yet, or
Yes.
We have a motion and a second. Motion, second for discussion.
Okay, so then,
We have a motion.
moving forward with this, does this give us the opportunity to hedge against that cost of buying brine from MnDOT, or we're still buying brine from MnDOT? We're just storing it ourselves, or because you're talking about the availability. We're buying this from MnDOT now. Availability might get tighter, and costs may continue to increase. And that by doing this gives us a hedge in play, but we're still buying it from MnDOT or not.
Well, so this winter we'll continue to have that relationship with MnDOT, because I don't anticipate this equipment being installed until near the end of this project. So at that point, say we're occupying our building in late February, I don't know if it's going to be in our benefit to start doing testing our brine system and figuring out how it works in the middle of a snow season. So we'll continue to have that relationship with MinDOT now. And MinDOT, another local agency, works so well with the counties. So how our relationships work, we end up trading salt for them and a little bit of salt for their water consumption. So in the future, you know, if we have this system, we'll no longer be going to MinDOT to buy brine, we'll be creating it ourselves there on site. That kind of what you're getting at, Commissioner Blaine?
I believe so. So we'll access salt to make our own brine outside of MinDOT, correct?
Yes, we'll be independent, so we'll have our own products that we'll be using inside our brine system, creating that solution ourselves. We'll no longer be going over to MinDOT to ask if there's only brine available and having to work out different agreements with them.
Exactly what I need to know. So I have nothing further.
Okay, gentlemen, the question before us, the motion before us is to outfit the brine room for $175,100, whatever that number is, in fact. That's the question, that's the motion before us.
Mr. Chair, coming out of your reserves, correct?
And coming out of reserves, period.
So come out of road and bridge reserves, yes.
And one more time, you're comfortable with that.
Yes, we've have a very tight rein on where our funding, or our reserve fund is at and our projections towards the end of the year. I'm very comfortable with the different funding items that are currently encumbered. And I'm comfortable making this as part of this, and I was actually anticipating this as part of our building, so that's very, very comfortable with this.
Anything further from the board? Gentlemen, this is going to be a roll call vote. I'm not hearing any more discussion. And I'm going to start with Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
Commissioner Casper. Aye. Myself, Commissioner Jelinski is an aye vote. Commissioner Winchell.
Aye.
That motion passes. We're going to move on now to our next item of business is still with Tony.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about
We're going to talk about a skid loader authorization to purchase an additional skid loader. And what this will be used will be to actually feed our brine system. As I mentioned beforehand, the actual unit is not wide enough to really accept a loader bucket to be dumping salt into it. So we're evaluating different ways and how we would feed this system. Again, working with our maintenance supervision and our operations manager, you know, their recommendation was to acquire a second skid steer. So I've been putting off, they've wanted one for other purposes, so this is ultimately going to be a multi-faceted piece of equipment. Won't only be used for brine, but it'll be used for a significant number of other items during our maintenance operations year round. So they've requested that I purchase a Cat 279D skid loader. This comes in at $89,540. This is part of the state contract. Again, this is a situation where I anticipated it as part of my brine system, so I had that incorporated in my encumbered funds of where I'm projecting our fund balance to be at the end of the year. And I find it as a useful piece of equipment that will have multiple uses outside of our brine system. I think it'll make our maintenance staff more effective as they go forward.
I didn't understand you, Tony. Sorry about that. How do you expect to pay for this?
This will be paid for through our road and bridge fund. I had it incorporated in the number that I was anticipating encumbering for both the brine system and the skid loader. I consider it as a whole because you have to be able to feed your brine system as well.
So this is part of your 2023 budget or this part of the project?
This will be part of, this will not be part of the project. This will be getting paid for through fund balance. But as I look at our financial statements and where I project our fund balance to be at the end of 2023, I've included this as an encumbered item. So if this item was not approved, then that additional about 90,000 for a round number would then go on top of where I was projecting our fund balance to be at.
And for a round number, your 279D is 90,000.
Yeah, it's 89,000.
Good enough.
It's 500.
Please.
I'll make the most approved.
Got a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Got a motion, we've got a second. Further discussion. Commissioner Winchell.
You brought up the front end loader is 100-inch roughly.
Yeah, it's, 100 and.
What, I mean, that's, I mean.
120 something.
Yeah, okay.
Like that.
But you said also that that would work, but they're going about 6 inches of clearance on each side. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, roughly, these are roughly.
Rough numbers.
Yeah,
So there'd be 6 inches total, so
well, 6, so it'd be 3
3
inches.
inches
Okay.
on
3
each
inches up.
side. So that would not be the best option to feed a,
No.
like that. You're gonna have
Not at
more
all.
salt on the
And I-
ground.
And I agree with that, but can we downsize and put a smaller bucket on this loader? And then my last question would be for this one is if, oh, I lost my train of thought on this one. Answer about the, can we put a different bucket on the, and I'll see if I can think of it.
So Tony, the question to you is how small of a bucket can we put on this skid steer?
So we run pretty large loaders, obviously. And one of the things when our last loader was purchased, especially our Little Falls, I believe it's a 2020 or maybe a 19 loader. One of the options that was not selected on that was a quick attach bucket. So to remove that bucket, you'd be removing multiple pins.
Yeah.
It would be a very consuming process to change your buckets. And then we'd have the obvious actual expense of purchasing a different bucket. And then from there, you would be loading your actual salt trucks or your tandems at a completely different rate. So you'd be seeing increased number of usage to continue to feed your trucks versus the couple of times it takes now.
And I got the last with my, our other skid steer, is that a cat also? And
Yes, sir.
okay, so now moving forward, you want to use this new one for multiple person. Would the attachments be interchangeable? So if we need a snow blower, we need a different type, would we be able to use the current attachments that we have?
Yes, sir. This is an identical skid loader to what we have currently. So the other one's a 279. All the attachments would be universal. When we're looking to purchase here is just a skid loader with a standard bucket with quick attach.
Okay.
Okay.
But so yes, the snow blower, our mulching, our different forks and stuff like that would all fit on side of this unit. You know, additionally, typically when we purchase a skid loader, we want a specific trailer for that. We have we have 2 trailers for sure that would be able to be utilized during the summertime to move this to different job sites. So we have that already built into our equipment now.
Gentlemen, the question before us is to purchase a 279D skid steer, a cat, rough figures, $90,000 come out of Public Works is, you know, road and bridges,
Fund balance.
fund balance. Anything further from the board?
Is this a wheeled skid loader or a track skid loader?
I asked the opinion of our supervisors, and they recommended a track skid loader to match our other one. And their thought process behind that was our track skid loaders perform better inside of ditches in the summertime maintenance. And so they'd be able to utilize it even further versus just the wheel loader.
These are 90 horse skid loaders.
Yeah, something of that nature. I don't know if I have it on the sheets. Doesn't say, but yeah, they're pretty large pieces of equipment with multi-flow on the fronts for other snow blowers or mulching attachments and different things like that, high flow skid loaders.
And to follow up with that one, because I kept thinking me when the tracks, you know, as well as I did, I've been on a few of them. They don't operate quite as well on the snow and the ice.
And I brought that up and that was their preferred, because when I was looking at it, I was thinking this is gonna feed our grind system. I prefer a wheel loader. But what they pointed out was our goal is to use this year round, and that fits inside my philosophy as I continue to evaluate our equipment. I don't like pieces of equipment that are one-offs. I want pieces of equipment that can be used multiple ways, so they're not just sitting there. And by moving to a track skid loader for this application, it may not perform as well for the salt application. But in the summertime, it'll perform 10 times better than a wheeled loader. And the other side of it, a lot of times in the wintertime, when you're looking at a wheel loader versus a track loader, and you're saying it's not performing as well in the snow, that's usually when it's in a snow removal application. I anticipate them maybe using a little bit for snow removal applications, but they have other pieces that do the snow removal inside our yard.
Gentlemen, you know the question, you know the motion. Further discussion. Hearing none, this is also going to be a roll call vote. We're going to start with Commissioner Casper. Aye. Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Wincher. Aye. And myself, Commissioner Jelinski, and I vote. Tony, you got a lot on your plate.
Yes, sir. And I'm very blessed to have staff that really overachieves. So again, very fortunate. I cannot say enough about the people that work for Public Works in Emerson County.
Thank you, Tony.
The citizens are very privileged to have them. I have one item that was not on the agenda. The City of Little Falls engineer Greg Kimmon reached out to me yesterday. They've been reviewing some different grant applications. And in that, they're requesting a letter of support for a TED grant, which is a Transportation Economic Development Grant, which provides improvements on trunk highways that provide measurable benefits that to the different citizens. So obviously, many of you are aware of it, and most of the people in Little Falls are aware that they've been looking at the Trunk Highway 27 and 18th Street intersection. And they've been working with MnDOT to come up with a solution to alleviate some of those crash instances and the different timing benefits. So Greg has requested that I provide a letter of support on behalf of the board. Not a resolution of support, just a letter of support. And that's why I'm bringing it in front of you today to support them in their grant application for this TED application. And I would like to recommend the board authorize me to write that letter of support for our neighbor, City of Little Falls.
Gentlemen, I'm good with it.
Do you need a motion?
I just want to.
Have it.
I said that.
Yep, go for it.
Okay, and that's all I had. I do have an ICE report here if you wanted further details on it. It'd probably be more appropriate if you have those questions to reach out to Greg Kimmon with the City of Little Falls. You can go into more in depth, but I can give you the generics if you wish.
You're on top of it, Tony.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for your time. That's all I have unless you have any.
Appreciate the information, good information, Tony. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work, Tony. Thank you. Beth, you've been, gonna take a 5-minute break. Thank you. Good morning, Beth. How are you this morning? Wonderful. You're here today to talk to us about insurance. Always one of everybody's most happiest patients.
Today I have an RPA to approve the following 2024 insurance committee recommendations for staff's insurance changes, along with the attached bacteria sheets that were in the board packet. Along with that, we are recommending, or the committee is recommending, an increase to the long-term disability, which is a benefit that the county currently pays for every benefit eligible employee, from a max of $3,000 per month to a max of $5,000 per month. That comes at an increase to the county of $4,000 for the year. Generally, we probably have about a handful, if not less, of employees who take advantage of that benefit. It's primarily for those that are unable to return to work after 90 days due to injury or illness, and will carry them to retirement if they're unable to return to the workforce. So that is beneficial. Obviously, we know things are getting more and more expensive, and to have a limited income while you're disabled is pretty tough. So, and along with that, cafeteria rate sheets for 24, offering an additional no cash opt-out for employees. Currently, we require employees to take the $275 taxable credit each month if they decide not to jump on the county's insurance plan. The primary reason for doing this is that there's a lot of other agencies, primarily I believe Camp Ripley, for families who have, spouses that work in both, you're unable to maintain the same insurance coverage because you have coverage for your employer. Essentially, so it allows them not to have a benefit, which helps the employee save money on their deductibles and health insurance costs, but we to stay in the same plan. And then we have also talked about increasing the $3,200 single HSA county contribution to $133.34 per month. Traditionally, we have always covered at least half of the annual maximum under the single coverage of the deductible, which is an additional, based on this year's enrollment, $400 a year.
Oh, there's 3 things that we're talking about here as a recommendation.
Yeah, that's a recommendation based on the whole. There's the understanding that we've come to with the insurance committee and with the union groups. Traditionally, we have done a 50-50 split on the increase with our insurances with our MOUs. The union counter offered this year, and that came up with an idea of how we can still be responsible, to our staff and to our constituents, because obviously it's a cost, to the citizens of Morrison County for our health insurance here at county. So we've come up with a banding solution in that under the LOGIS group, we have bands that we fall into each year based on our experience. And so with that, their range from A to D. E. So E being excellent, A being awful. We are moving from band C to band D this year, which is the opposite. The A and E throw me off. And so instead of that 50-50 split, we countered with a 60-40 split. So depending upon how the group's insurance does as a whole will depend on our band movement each year, which will determine the county's contribution towards the cafeteria each year.
And that hasn't changed for the last X number of years. That is what we've been operating on, isn't it?
$50 split.
Oh, what? Okay, 50-50, okay.
Yeah. So, because we slid down the scale a little bit, we'd offered 60-40 in the event
you know, that we moved to a band E. We are talking about, an 80-20 split and then so on, E and B, 50-50. So it'll never be less than that. We're gonna try it out, see how it goes. But that was the agreement we reached for 24.
I like it, and it's not an easy thing to even talk about.
No.
Just put it on this here, so.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Just readdress a couple of these. From what I could see historically, the county started off at about a 70-30 split. And each year over time, they've done a 50-50 on the increase. That gets us further and further from 70-30 and closer to a 50-50. So we're kind of losing the county's contribution, or sliding more and more to employers or employees' responsibility. We also looked at, or Beth looked at 10 or 12 other counties, and that 70-30 is far more consistent across the state. In addition, to stay competitive and to offset that cost, doing a 60-40 starts to move that needle just ever so slightly. And as the experience of the plan improves, or employees work to do things that could save money against our policy, like using online healthcare options, they can move in their band, and we could get up to an E, or excellent rating. When we looked at that study, if the county contributes 80-20, meaning 80% of the increase at a band E is about the same as the 50-50 and a band C. The difference is, the better the employee experiences, the more cost savings the employee gets to obtain. And the better our benefit package is as a county.
It doesn't matter. You can
Great. Question I have, I don't know who this handle this. Was this part of our 2024 budget? Is this gonna be in that part of that levy? This increase that we're coming to board, correct?
Yeah, so we had our insurance rates when the budget, information had gone out to the different departments. And it was something that we had talked about earlier in the summer, I don't know if you recall. So they were planned full of the insurance.
Which is very nice for, and I'm not gonna say for a change, I wanna say for a change, but I'm not gonna say that we can plan for this now for the 2024 budget versus it's July, and I'm just talking out loud. And, now we have to change something. This is a budgetary thing that we can move forward with, so I appreciate that.
So,
Commissioner Whitmer,
so we have three separate
what?
fundings based on hours. Is that what I'm reading here?
Based on,
Yeah, I got one that says full-time employees, 34 to 36 hour, part-time employees, 30 to 33.
so we have different rate sheets for the different levels of employees that we have. So full-time is that 60-40. And then we also offer benefits to our part-time staff, those that work 34 to 36 hours, and those that work 30 and above, and those are on a prorated cafeteria rate sheet based on the number of hours that they work,
And
correct?
that's 34 hours a month, right?
A pay period.
A pay period.
Yeah.
It just moved me up because it said monthly rates. Yeah, and that's, okay, and then, can you explain to me that no cash opt-out? So they either get taxable 275, or they can just say they don't want to get that 275?
Correct, because we found out, and we've had employees ask for the last number of years about whether or not they can choose to not take that cash because their spouse's plan probably has a provision that they're not allowed to take any incentives to be on their plan. And so it just frees them up to be able to have one family deductible instead of a family and a single, which is more, cost savings for that.
So the opt-out, are they gonna have to opt in to get the 275, or do they have to physically opt out to not get this?
They're gonna have to choose. We're gonna offer both of them, so depending upon what their situation is, but it was important for them to not receive incentive. So they'll have to choose what they like.
And then one more thing, just so I'm clear, the 60-40, the the individual contribution would go up by 40%, is that one?
So we had 11.73% increase on our premiums overall for 24. And generally we split that in half. So we would be responsible for the 222,000, whatever it was, and it ended up being $400,000.
And the answer is yes. The employee is gonna pay 40% of that increase.
Whatever.
Mhm.
Yes.
Thank you.
You had stated that we improved in the last year in the bandwidth, or we changed in the bandwidth from band C to band D, and band E is excellent.
Flip.
Going from band,
We-
we're moving to band C.
When compared against our pool, the
Yes.
county's experience was worse than average. And so we actually downgraded.
Okay, so that, so for example, though, if it was reversed and we would have went from C to D, the percent increase would have been less.
The increase to the plan as a whole would have been less. Our committee recommendation to the board would then to cover 70% of the increase and 30% to the employee, which comes out to about the same when you get that proportion in there.
But yes, and I understand that, and I agree with that philosophy there, especially to try and get us to move the needle, as you say. But the important factor is that bandwidth, because that's what sets that percent
rate.
increase.
Mm.
You know, the farther we go from C to B, we could, that would probably be a 15% increase. And just pull the numbers out of the air, but it would be
It's been more
significantly more. It would be significantly more, so.
Gentlemen, we're having an awful lot of discussion. We don't have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the insurance committee recommendation for the employee insurance changes.
Look for a second.
I'll second it.
And we've got a motion, we've got a second. Gentlemen,
Mr.
I
Chair,
apologize for, excuse me.
sorry to interrupt. I want to be very clear. To date, we have 5 union groups. To date, 3 of them have signed an MOU. We believe a 4th one is likely to approve. There can still be this vote today, but I just want okay, so we have 4 out of 5. So I just want the board to know that Public Works Union Group meets the following week, and we'll find out where they're at. But at this point in time, would be to agree to the 4 MOUs that are approved, and the 5th if approved.
That's how I would make my motion, Mr. Chair.
And is that how the second would be?
And I'm fine with that.
Okay, and Matt, thank you for that. That's a clarity piece that we needed to know. So thank you for that. All right, we've got a motion, we've got a second. Gentlemen,
Mr. Chair,
I'm sorry for the discussion.
I was just gonna, that was my question. Is this timed with the union contracts?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And it is, okay, thank you.
In an MOU, not the contract, but an addendum MOU.
I see that. Very good, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion? Hearing none, gentlemen, we're gonna do a roll call vote. Commissioner Bland.
Aye.
Commissioner Casper.
Aye.
Myself, Commissioner Jelinski is an aye vote. Commissioner Wincher. Aye. Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Gentlemen, that motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, that's all I have.
That, thank you. As always, very kind of, you should stop in once in a while, a little more often. You don't stop in very often.
I was just telling them too, I was like, you're very often.
Thank you. Matt, you can bring her along once in a while.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Right, thank you. We're gonna move into our next item of business, and gentlemen, finally, we're making our way to the administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rounding third and heading home here. Just a reminder or just a brief history. Last month, I requested the board to authorize myself and facilities manager to get into receive some bids for a mechanical door operator vicinity our license bureau office. The project was to install 2 openers, to gain a better ease of access for those with that just have mobility issues or would prefer to use ADA compliant type entrance. So at that time, it was estimated that the quotes could come in as high as $30,000, as we expected one of the more significant costs to be an increase to the heating. A bit of good news this morning, with the remodel, it was pre-wired for that. So our bid came in at less than half that. So I will pull this over. So we had 3 vendors, wiring from Absolute Electric at about $1,300. The new heater comes in installation from RJ Mechanics at about $6,000. And then the last $6,800. And then the operator in the install from ASSA Abloy, if that's how they say it, comes in at about $6,100. So my ask of the board today is to approve up to $15,000 to install the 2 operators Vicinity License Bureau.
Gentlemen, I'd look for a motion.
So moved, Randy. I'm second.
Got a motion and a second, further discussion.
Timing.
Mr. Chair, we think this equipment may be available and it may get in here before the end of the year. Installed
Before winter.
before winter.
This doesn't, or does this alleviate that issue with temperature control over there then too? That
This includes it. This includes the heater. The significant cost saving is that when they did the recon or whatever it's called, they found the ability to install it much, is already pre-wired. And so it'll include that heater.
So it'll alleviate the same cold.
Yeah, it should be good, Mr. Chair. And all we can do is try it, and we know it will drop the temperature if both doors are open and you get the right wind in that kind of tunnel there. But and again, when we talked about this last month, we hope this is the solution. But if we got to reroute them through that second vestibule, we'll come back. But this is the next best step in an iterative process.
Thank you.
There was a motion in a second.
Yeah, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, this is gonna be a roll call vote. Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Winchell.
Aye.
Myself, Commissioner Jelinski's and I vote. Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
Commissioner Winchell. Excuse me,
I'll go on.
Commissioner Cassidy. Apologize. That is, that motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My next topic is maybe of interest. We've had a VSO for just over a year now. What I've not asked the board to do is to appoint Chris Von Berg. I was waiting until she had finished her certifications and trainings. That concluded at the end of July, 27th of July, to be exact, on our last certificate. This is a 4-year appointment in accordance with Minnesota State Statute 197.60. So we'd look for the board to make the appointment, and then next week, our VSO is currently at a conference, so next week she would take the oath of office and be sworn into that position.
Look for a motion.
I make a motion.
We've got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Further discussion?
One question, Mr. Chair.
Please.
So it is through state statute that we're directed that this has to be a 4-year appointment. We don't have the option of an alternative.
Mr. Chair, I could read the term out of the statute, but to summarize, the first 12 months was the opportunity of probation, which is passed in August here. She's crested her 12 months. Otherwise, henceforth, it's a 4-year appointment for that position.
That's your question?
That's my question.
I didn't want to, okay, so I started my mouth. I would just say I met with Chris when she was first hired and we talked about these certifications. I will just share with the board that I plan to continue to address this with the state, but to take 11 months to get a veteran service officer certified by requirements that they mandate, I don't believe is acceptable. It's their mandate. Then if you're going to mandate it, then you should increase the opportunity. So now that we've experienced it, I've got information I can go back to them with to address. But if they're the ones holding back our employee from being able to do her job, I do plan to address this with them.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the last item here on the agenda was introduced by our Public Works Director of a cost to the county. For a brief history lesson, I wrote it down here. Back in May 5th of 2021, the county board passed a resolution to grant, if that's the right word, contribute $200,000 from Morrison County Public Works Reserve to Todd County to offset the costs incurred upon the award of construction contract of the Lake Shamana High Water Project. So I'm a little bit ahead of myself. Gentlemen, I'm not asking for a resolution. You took care of that in May 5th of 2021. What I wanted to catch the board up on today was that a contract has been awarded by Lake Shamana for their high water project and to begin the installation of a pump. We also have the resolution from the Lake Shamana board accepting that contract. And unless there are concerns from the board, I plan to include this contribution of $200,000 to Todd County included in the September 26th warrants.
Good with me. We've talked about this a billion times and it's all taken care of here. But
Okay.
you're just bringing us up for an update. Is that correct?
Letting you know, you'll see those hit in the September 26th warrant.
Questions from the
And
board?
Mr. Chairman, this again, I was reiterating, we already approved this done how long ago? 6 months ago, really.
Way back here.
Oh, May, yeah.
May 5th of 21.
Over a year
It's
ago.
done.
Todd County hasn't changed their mind about
No, of course they have.
the money or the water coming, so.
Okay,
Very good.
and I think
Thank you
That's
for
it.
that.
that's all I have, Mr. Chair. If any questions?
Questions for the administrator? Gentlemen, this means that we're gonna get to talk about schedules.
And Mr. Chair, you go ahead and start.
Can I start?
How about some dates?
We're gonna start with the 17th of September and we're gonna go through the 30th. That being said, the 19th of September at 8:30 in the morning, we've got a planning meeting here in the boardroom. And at 6 o'clock that night, we've got a planning commission board of adjustment meeting, same location. On the 20th, 3:30 in the afternoon, I have a state emergency communications board executive committee meeting, which will be virtual. 5 o'clock that evening, I have a Hands of Hope meeting, which will also be virtual. On the 21st September, I have a Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board Owners and Operators Users Group meeting. And for anyone that's interested, at 2 o'clock that afternoon, there's a flu shot clinic here in the boardroom, the government center. On the 25th, 10 o'clock in the morning, I have State Emergency Communications Board Planning Meeting, City of St. Cloud. That's all in regards to Chapter 403. The 26th of September, 8 o'clock in the morning, gentlemen. I'm gonna be here early that morning. It's a board meeting, but we're going to have a Morrison County 4-H breakfast that morning. So I would like all of you to come wearing your 4-H t-shirts that morning, just as you're dressed today, except you can throw your tie away on that day. Put your 4-H t-shirt on, put your suit coat on, and look like we belong, and that's just how it'll be. That's the uniform of the day. And that means that our board meeting is at 9 o'clock following our Morrison County 4-H breakfast. The 27th of September at 11 o'clock in the morning, I have Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board Executive Committee meeting, followed by a full board meeting at 1 o'clock, and that's at the City of St. Cloud. The 28th, 12:30 in the afternoon, on the State Emergency Communications full board meeting. 3 o'clock that afternoon, I have the 2023 Public Safety Communications conference planning meeting on the 29th, 10 o'clock in the morning, out of Central Minnesota, EMS Joint Powers Board meeting, and I believe that is in the city of St. Cloud, excuse me, Wake Park at the Stearns County Service Center on the 29th. Gentlemen, that's all I have at this moment. Commissioner Winchell.
All right. Above and beyond that, did you is there that Camp Ripley open house on Friday or Sunday the 17th? Okay, I don't, that's a solid. What time does that start? What time does that start?
10 o'clock, Mr. Chair.
10 o'clock in the morning.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Commissioner.
Okay, and then, from that, on Thursday, the 28th, I have TCC at 5:30. And on the Friday, the 29th, I have Soil and Water at 8 o'clock. And then the biggest thing is on Friday at 6 o'clock, Wicked Woods is having their grand opening.
Nice. And we said 29?
29th, yeah.
There's something we can do.
What time? 6 o'clock is the grand opening. That's his teaching. Oh, yeah. You can go to our Facebook.
Okay, next.
Mr. Chair,
Please.
18th, staff mental health enhancement discussion. Large conference room admin.
Okay.
You got planning commission, right?
Yep.
20th, public health, 5 o'clock, and that's held right here. 21st, safety committee meeting, is that on? 2 o'clock. That's usually in the peers room. And 27th, HRA, 9 o'clock, HRA. And then the 29th, Matt Meyer meeting with, Anna Krill, I think, in the large conference room.
Excellent. Commissioner Bland?
Few things, 21st. Egg Society, 7 o'clock. I'm gonna assume that's gonna still be at the fairground, sure it is. On Tuesday, the 26th, kind of a big deal too, for Mississippi One Watershed One project. We are having our policy committee meeting and our public hearing to take input on this project. This will be from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Camp Ripley Environmental Center. And on the 28th, at Region 5, we will have, dinner at 5:30, but at 6 o'clock p.m. this will be our, the month we have our joint meeting. At 6 o'clock, the Economic Development District meeting will be at 6 p.m. and at 6:30 p.m. will be the Region 5 Development Commission meeting. That will take place at 6:30. And I believe that's all I have.
Excellent.
It's Pioneer Days this weekend.
Yep.
too.
If I may too, I forgot on the 19th, I have Great River Regional Library. Forgot about that one. That's gonna be at 5 o'clock.
And you're counting down.
I'm counting down.
Commissioner Casper, you're next.
Okay, Tuesday, the 19th, 12 o'clock community development meeting at Pine County Bank. And then Thursday, the 21st, airport commission meeting. I believe that's at City of Little Falls at Hall. And then Friday, 10 o'clock, the 22nd, Mississippi Headwater Board meeting at Walker. And then on Thursday, the 28th, Rum River Watershed Board meeting at Malacca Courthouse at 4:30 in the afternoon. And then on the 29th, Friday, Wicked Woods. It should do it.
Thank you. Gentlemen, is there anything else that needs to come before this board?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
did you mention the Camp Ripley Water Festival?
No, I didn't. I haven't seen anything
Okay.
about that.
All right,
That's-
I have it on my calendar for September 19th and September 20th. And I guess I would ask you to put those as placeholders, and I will reach out to Camp Ripley or to Soil and Water and confirm those dates and times. 19th and 20th of September. I have it at 7 o'clock.
If that is true, and you have it at 7 o'clock in the morning, that might be just a little tiny bit early, because I think it's.
It starts at usually around 9,
Oh,
because they bus,
the bus, the kids there.
our kids
Okay.
gotta be there till 8,
Yeah,
8:30.
And
Like after 8:45.
Okay.
yeah, well, more, I would say closer to round numbers of 8 o'clock.
If you may, why don't you reach, yeah, because I was at the oil and that was not brought up, so maybe talk to Shannon.
I will do that.
And then I would
Let
ask
us know.
the board, if that is the water festival, do we want to change our planning meeting to being 9 o'clock? If that's true, and I would look to the administrator or Tabitha to just simply keep us up to date as to what would happen on the 19th and 20th, if that is actually the water festival. Would that be?
Do we have a pretty good agenda already lined up for that planning session?
We do, Mr. Chair. Well, and that's gonna be the legislative update from the staff.
Yeah.
But that's gonna be the main ticket on there. So, it'll be a good session. 26th is to set the prelim.
Oh, excuse me,
Yeah, we're gonna have budget.
I'm on the 19th.
So we don't have budget on the 19th.
No,
Not unless there's a request.
Okay, that's.
as it is right now, we don't.
We got,
Just one
we
make,
got, HRA coming before.
They are, that's right. Yeah.
it's on the 26th.
19.
I think if it's all right, we'll change the planning session to 9 o'clock. And then I'll also let you know, so we can get that published for legals.
Okay, let's
And,
just do 9 o'clock period,
Yep.
no matter what.
No matter what.
Planning meeting on the 19th is 9 o'clock.
And then I will
And
find
that's
out,
done.
I will confirm the water festival.
Okay, very good, and I would appreciate that, as the rest of the board would. Thank you for that.
Send us an email.
Will do.
Is there anything else that needs to come before this board, gentlemen? Look for a motion to adjourn. Those in favor? Those opposed? That motion passes. It is 11:36. Thank you.
Who first can do that?
Commissioner Winter and Commissioner Blaine.